You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 458, our breakdown of episode 10 of the Andor series, One Way Out. This is an episode that I have already gone on record as saying is probably, it's not even probably, I've watched it enough times now to say with confidence that for me, this is probably the best I've seen in Star Wars television, and I include the animation, including Rebels and Clone Wars, and if you're ever listened to this show, you know how dear to my heart those two particular series are. So I know that's a pretty bold statement because we've had a lot of great Star Wars television. We've had a lot of great Star Wars moments, and this episode delivered on both of those. So that's my opinion, but let's see what Jonesy has to say because he's with us tonight. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, man. And yeah, it was pretty all right.
Okay, well, way to deflate it, but
right.
No, we've not had a chance to talk about it.
No, I mean, there's so much to talk about. I don't even want to give it away or start to do that. We'll give our opening thoughts here soon enough. But
yeah.
Oh man, I've got some thoughts. Yeah,
lots and lots of thoughts. I mean, the picture that we use for the title card is worth at least an hour conversation. So
yeah, although we did have a little bit of fun here in Discord lately, though, with of course all the Snoke stuff is coming out, and so we started having a bit of a naming contest. And I'm not to toot my own horn.
Okay, all right.
I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty proud of the name I came up with.
So context. What do you? So
context.
The name
so
of
Kino.
Snoke,
yeah. So a lot of people are like, well, Kino. This is how he becomes Snoke, right? Basically. And so
Snoke origin story.
Right. Yeah. So we had some cool things out there, like, well, Kino can't swim, so maybe maybe he needs a snorkel. Get it? Snorkel.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so all sorts of craziness and stuff. I'm overselling it a little bit, but my mind just started going crazy. So I'm like, no, his name is Snokino Loy.
Snokino Loy. I like it. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, it's kind of catchy, right?
It is catchy. I enjoy that. Snokino.
So I declared myself winner of Discord today.
Well,
it's been a while, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's exciting. I'm happy for you.
I didn't tell Discord that. I just kind of told everybody else.
Right. So they're finding out here as well as the rest of everyone else. So.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll get into that here in just a little bit. There's a lot to talk about there, but before we do, we've got a lot of Patreon news, I guess.
Oh my gosh,
that's happened here recently.
Yeah, new subscribers, upgrades, all across the board. Norwegian Space Wolf, thank you for joining at the Green Milk tier. Welcome aboard. Danny, who's got one of the coolest names, Sharkman Dan, because I mean, how much fun is that to say? Sharkman Dan.
Yeah, Sharkman Dan.
Joined our now part of the tribe tier. And then Daz, cool. Our old friend Daz, man, leveled up to the now part of the tribe tier. So that is super exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys. We know, just a quick comment. We know times are getting a bit tough in the economy and with jobs and everything else. And we know that you guys have a lot of options or a lot of responsibilities of how you want to spend your money and stuff. So that you put that faith in us and you want to support us really does mean a lot to us. So we did want to say thank you from the bottom of our heart. We know some people have to jump off and leave us, and financial, every dollar counts. We get that. So we certainly do appreciate it and don't take it for granted, and just want to give a special thank you to everyone who has contributed to the show in the past and who continues to do so. It's very humbling on both of our parts.
Yep, for sure. Thank you guys.
So our special thank yous now part of the tribe members: Mike, Lauren, Rob, Dante, Risk, Justin, Jackson, Danny, and Daz, now new to the list. Delusions of Grandeur, Rod, Eugene, Kathy. Thank you guys so much, guys and gals. Thank you all so much for all of your patronage, if you will.
I see
what I did there. I know, right? That was so clever. No one's.
You're just on a roll. Like you're firing off on all.
I know. We're just in the show now, man.
Yep.
Because I'm spent basically. You know what it is? I had a Starbucks today.
Did you?
I did. I had a Starbucks. I had someone gave me a gift card for a Starbucks, and so I got some Starbucks, and so now I am wired,
wound up, and ready to go. Huh?
I am wound up. So by the end of the show, I will probably be dragging.
Here comes the crash.
Exactly.
All right. Well, again, yes, thank you guys, everyone that's existing Patreon members, and those of you that have just joined us, and certainly those that have upgraded in your tiers. We just paid bills today, so
We
we
actually
know
did.
we know exactly where that money's going. So thank you all very, very much.
Yeah, and in the
Okay.
live stream, in the
Yeah.
chat before we get started, Steph, Jonathan, Music Train, Lauren, Sky, Dale, Kathy, thank you all for showing up so far. If you're in the background, we hope you'll come in and say hi and be part of the conversation. It should be a lot of fun tonight.
You still gonna do shout outs at the end?
Absolutely, we do this. We
Oh.
do this both ways, man. It's your first time.
Okay. All right. Doing them both times. All right. That sounds good.
Man,
Okay. Well, let's get started
because we do, man.
there,
I don't know. I'm confused.
we've got, like you said, a lot to talk about here with this episode, One Way Out, continuation of the no more than 12 line that kind of left us hanging there on episode 9. But before we get started, give me your thoughts, because I don't know how you felt about this. I would imagine you were pretty excited and you enjoyed it as much as I did, but maybe I came out a little too strong. What do you think?
I know. I mean, you're probably not selling it enough. Actually, I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, for the first time, I can really think of across the board, but to have multiple actors that you really do feel, and I don't say things like this lightly, because we all know that no one cares about Star Wars acting, but oh my God, the acting is so good in this series that if there are not award nominations at the very least, and I don't know about winning, but you could name at least 2, 3, 4 characters who are worthy of an award nomination for the performances that we're getting. Stellan Skarsgård, I mean, he's got to be at the top of that list, right? Yeah. And even Andy Serkis. I mean, Andy Serkis is absolutely knocked out of the park. Those two guys in this episode, absolutely stellar. And then, oh, by the way, Genevieve O'Reilly coming in and just knocking a home run too. I mean,
she was phenomenal in this episode.
Oh my God. I mean, I didn't see that coming either. So I like that we're still getting these kind of surprises along the way of what could someone possibly ask for that's not money that would matter. And oh yeah, an opportunity to hand your daughters, to give your daughter away and betroth her. So, I mean, it's a really, I don't know if we called that or not, but maybe we did. Anyway, so.
I don't think we called that. We said it was, we said it was likely not going to be money, is what we said.
Right. Yeah.
Because he already had money. So what else is it? Power of some sort. Yeah. Which you could argue this is a form of power. So. Oh,
absolutely. And continuing on family lines of power, we see this all the time historically, and it still happens to this day in some cultures as well. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, oh man, I mean, is that something that you would agree with, that like these are award nomination worthy
yes.
performances that we're seeing in some cases?
Yeah, and it's funny. I had this conversation with somebody today, speaking about this episode specifically, and we were talking about the quality, the caliber of acting that we're getting, which is, we've had some. I mean, we've had some pretty good acting in Star Wars. Okay, I'm not going to say we haven't, but it's just not what Star Wars is known for. There've been some standout performances. I think the one that I think most people talk about, honestly, is probably Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, right? Given the complexity of that character. But beyond that, I mean, Harrison Ford's always pretty solid, that sort of thing. And when we get to the TV series, Pedro Pascal has done a pretty darn good job of giving us a lot without actually seeing his face. But this is just a different level, and some of it is because of I wouldn't say the medium, but the tone, right, and the type of show this is, right. It lends itself to very dramatic speeches. I mean, this episode we got 2 incredible speeches, one from Andy Serkis as Kino. Later on, we get Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen. Those types of dialogues and those monologues just don't normally happen in Star Wars, and not to the degree in this level. But again, it's because of the story, the type of story that's being told, the situations that we're in, that we're getting that. So, but that aside, the writing is phenomenal in itself, but you can have really great writing and have a really crappy performance, and it shows. And we're just fortunate that we're getting both that. We're getting great performances, great writing, great acting, great directing, great cinematography, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but great music as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was finally, this is the moment today was the first time I'm like, wow, the music is really, really powerful in this moment.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah, and the writing and the acting go hand in hand so much in this case, where, like you said, it goes both ways. You could have really strong acting, and if you have weak writing, you're not doing your actors any favor, and it just gets lost in the shuffle. Yeah. And then again, the delivery of great lines has to be there as well. And oh my goodness, I mean, you just have this great combination to where we have just not had weakness in this in this series. We're 10 episodes in, and we haven't seen a weak performance, I don't think.
No.
Nothing, and nothing that's at least memorable to where we keep going back. You're like, well, that moment was kind of shoddy. No, it's really, like, you just really feel it with the characters every single time. And it's just top to bottom. I really do hope that this series gets recognized for the quality that it is bringing from top to bottom. And again, some of my earlier criticisms about some of the, editing, while I still think a little bit choppy in places, has really solidified and really found a better place of how they're moving around a little bit too.
Yeah. So I want to touch on editing in just 1 second, but go back to the acting, the caliber that we're talking about here. I would suspect that they're going to at least submit somebody like Andy Serkis for a guest role. I forget what it's called in the Emmys, right? He's not a main character, but he comes on, he has a couple episodes, and there's all this criteria that goes into it. What's that?
Like a supporting character or like a guest?
Yeah, probably supporting,
like a recurring guest or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that close to the Emmys, honestly, and I'm exposing myself here in that regard. But I know there's some kind of role, right? So I would suspect that they're going to submit his name for something like this. On top of that, I think Stellan Skarsgård. I think Diego Luna is. I mean, he's up against some really great people, but I think we forget just how good he is. And this is one of the episodes where I felt like he really was holding his own, especially up against a powerhouse that is somebody like Andy Serkis.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we saw that with, we saw him kind of rise up, if you will, when he had the scenes with Stellan Skarsgård earlier in the series as Luthen. But Genevieve O'Reilly, I think all four of them are probably lock-ins for submissions. But and again, I know I'm biased. I just feel like at least Andy Serkis and Stellan Skarsgård right now are just killing it. And you can put them up against other actors that are doing really great stuff right now, and they're right there. And it just happens to be Star Wars. So I mean, we're spoiled and we're very fortunate in that regard. But I challenge anyone to find better performances than what they're doing right now.
Yeah, and it wasn't a slight against Diego Luna by my omission of him, because he's been exceptionally good as well. And what I really like is that Diego Luna is the thread that ties everyone together, right? And this is very much an ensemble, not ensemble cast, but ensemble performance too. Like if one character breaks down, they all kind of fall apart. Yeah, then it's an individual contribution, an individual performance, but the reason why the performances are so powerful are because of the acting and the writing, but also everything that's going on around them, and it all feels right. And that's a testament to everyone's involvement, and like you were saying, the overall direction. It's really a total production success that is making all of these things even possible. And then, yeah, by the way, you've got some really A-list people knocking it out of the park that do what they do best, because you have put them in the best place to succeed, and everyone around them is bringing their A game too.
Yeah, so and don't sleep on Denise. Is it Gow or Go? What was Goff? Mm-hmm. Oh, good Lord, I screwed that one up.
Well, 13's a charm.
Denise Goff. Yeah, don't sleep on her. Like I think
I am going to sleep on Kyle Solar though. Sorry.
I don't know, man. I know you don't like him, but he's just not had a lot to do yet. If
you wanted someone with the Creeper Award, definitely going to give it to Kyle Solar. You're right, though. I mean, and I'm not throwing shade on him. I mean, this is a guy that's doing exactly what the character is supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the character, that's the point. Right.
His time will come. Like it
is going to.
I keep saying this. I know people are still upset that we're not getting a lot of him, and what we get is mostly him eating cereal and being just tagged by his mom all day. But again, there's a reason why they don't just put that stuff in here for no reason. And I know we're only coming down. We've got 2 episodes left. Probably not going to get a lot resolved with him, but I think I've been calling it. He's going to be a bigger part in season 2, whether it joins the Empire, whatever his date and his destiny and his fate are. We're seeing some of what's happening now is going to play into that later down the road. So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, don't count her out either.
Yeah, exactly. And to my point with Luthen, I mean, his speech is super powerful, but also Lonnie's presence and in his perspective and the way that he delivers his lines make that more powerful too, because it incites this rage out of out of Stellan Skarsgård's character, and that's really, I mean, again, that's what makes this stuff work. If you're talking to a piece of cardboard, it doesn't work because it's like, well, he's just it's truly a monologue at that point. But no, this is all in response to something that's incited him, and the actor across the walkway from him is definitely a big part of that. And it was a character that seemed a bit weak, but in this moment, it was good to be able to see a character like that shine as well.
Yeah. No, he certainly had a whole nother dimension thrown at him that I was not expecting. And this episode had two really good twists. That, and then of course, Kino and being unable to swim. That was kind of the one of like, wait, what? That was a bit of a head scratching moment. Like, really? That's how we're going to leave this off? Like, you talk about unsatisfying things. We're going to nitpick. Unsatisfying of, I can't swim. But what? I can't swim. And then what? And then you get tackled and everybody's gone. You're like, all right. Yeah. I got some thoughts on that.
Sorry about you.
I posted them on Twitter too today.
Oh, did you? Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That whole
some people that are with us tonight have already seen them, so they know they're spoiled already. But so on the music real quick. So the editing. What the heck was I going to say about the editing? I enjoyed it. But so what I was going to say is, like, as much as the editing can seem choppy in an episode, we've talked about how it's used to kind of build tension, right? And I think when this series is over, I feel like this series is going to lend itself to rewatches just because it's there's so much here, and maybe not for like the trivial stuff, like the trivia stuff, not trivial, but the trivia stuff and the lore. I'm not talking about that, but just rewatchability and, bringing somebody into the series and just tell them, no, just wait, one more episode and 2 episodes is going to blow your mind. Then after that, you're going to get your mind blown again and then again and then again. That stuff doesn't normally happen, even with like some of the Star Wars show, like Mandalorian, that sort of thing. I mean, there's some great moments in there, but This one just has so many twists and turns. And I hate to use the Lost analogy because I know people are probably tired of hearing me talking about that. But that was one of the things I enjoyed about Lost is like every episode, there's a twist that happens. And that show the episodes built on each other. And so taking it back to the editing, I think when we look at the series after it's finished, at least for the first season, I think what we'll see is a lot of the editing, if you look at holistically, has been done intentionally to kind of tell this long story. It's just really hard to see. It's kind of like it's hard to see the trees when you're in the middle of the forest kind of thing, But I think when we're out of that, I think we'll be able to look back on that with a different light. But
you can't see the forest through the trees.
Can't see the forest through the trees. Yeah.
There you go.
That analogy. Okay. But the music, my goodness, there was some.
Oh. So it's going to be 2 weeks in a row that we have a problem. We've lost our Gunter. Well, while we're waiting on Albert, if you're listening to this, we do have live stream every week, sometimes twice a week. Sometimes we even finish it. CantinaCast.com/YouTube. If you're in the live stream, if you can let us know who you can actually see so we know who has the problem. I'm assuming it's Albert, but I don't want to presume that. I'm only blaming him because that's where the problem was last week. Oh, there we go. I guess we lost him. All right, well, let's give this a few minutes here. In the meantime, we'll do it like we did last time. If anybody is wanting to share some of their, the music train, thank you. If anyone's wanting to share some of their thoughts and what they had and what was the main, if you were to take one thing away from this episode, was it the Kino or moments, just the tension of all of that, the speech, or was it a Luthen, or what was the moment, or you're just like, no, just start to finish, just give me the whole episode and just play it on repeat. So I'd love to hear some of y'all's feedback and thoughts around, what resonated the most with you throughout the episode. Yeah, Lauren, let's talk about I Can't Swim. I guess I could put things on screen here. That was a hard moment. I mean, I Can't Swim. That was such a hard moment because it was all of this tension. They finally made it, right? I mean, you get to the promised land. You've defied all odds, and only to get to that point and know that you can't go any further. At least maybe he's unwilling to go any further at that point. It was once I got over the whole, like, what are you kidding me? It was just so sad, right? I mean, because it's like, okay, well, I guess he's not going anywhere. He keeps pulling himself further and further back, from the ledge there to not go. And we'll talk about this tonight because I know Albert's got some theories about what's next for Kino or Snow Kino. But I really like Lauren continues here. I can't swim hit me so hard. That was when I knew he cared about the other inmates. Yeah, and I think we finally saw that, right? And I know you had posted this on Discord that we got validation that Kino does care. And again, I think it was pretty evident that he did, but he had to completely isolate himself and distance himself from everyone in order to keep his own sanity and keep his own faith. But when the whole construct falls apart and you're left with nothing else, you realize what's most important, and it's not just you as an individual, it's everyone around you. And I think that's what Andor really, pulled that out of him, and he forced him to say, do the thing you do every single day. Do this thing that you are so good at. These guys listen to you, they respect you, even though they know you're hard on them. They will listen because you have that credibility, right? And the only thing that was a little maybe disappointing though at the end was that no one else was taking Kino and dragging him. And I know they had 5,000 people jumping out this window basically, but it was still really sad. Adele is saying that Kino is fine. He'll be fine. Everything's fine. How are you? And Dale says, I keep telling myself that there's hope. There's always hope. And if not, there's always a back to tank, and there's always a cloning chamber. So, Kino will be in one of the above anytime. I think the thing I'm curious about with some of this, though, is whether or not, at what point do we revisit these characters, or do we? And we've taken some breaks from other aspects of other characters from the series. I mean, we keep flashing back to Cinta, so we know that Cinta is still around. We know that she's still on Ferrix, but when are we going to get back into these characters? What is it going to take for us to go in and to really re-engage with them? And with Kino, I mean, clearly there's going to be some sort of investigation when it comes to the platform. And welcome back. Albert Padilla has rejoined us.
Hello.
We have analyzed episode 10. And
really? What did you guys talk about?
We agreed it was pretty good.
There's Lauren. I can't swim. I know she's dying to talk about that.
Yeah, we touched on it a touch, but
okay.
No, we were just kind of sharing some thoughts and where the show might take us here.
All right. Well, thanks for doing that. I will. Yep. I need to. It's the same. It's my modem again. I've got Spectrum, who I hate. I used to have Google Fiber up until about 2-3 months ago, and I kind of miss it. I honestly do miss it. So
yep.
Change. Yeah, it is a big change. Yeah, like my speed is. I was at 2 gigs and went to 1, and I'll cut all this out. But I was at 2 gigs and went to 1 gig.
This is what people are here for. Oh, this isn't Patreon. My bad.
Yeah, it's not Patreon. But okay, well, let's do this. Let's pick it up. I'll pick it up right when talking about the music, and then I'll edit them together. So let's see. What was I talking about with the music? The music now. Okay. So yes, the music. There was moments in here, like during the speeches especially, that was incredible. And it was just this swelling that happened. And even if you listen to the very beginning, he's using, I always forget the artist's name, but I'll learn it at some point.
Nicholas.
That guy.
Yeah, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his last name now.
Yeah, that guy. So if you listen to the music at the very beginning of the episode, there's bits and pieces that he throws into the monologues at the very end. So not only is it swelling, but it's also kind of building on each other. And I need the soundtrack. I really do. Like at some point, I know they've released a couple of the tracks already from the first couple of episodes. I think the first 3, maybe the first 6 now at this point. That would be the Aldani stuff. But hopefully now that this arc is over, we'll get all, the next 4 at least. But man, especially in Kino's speech, there's just something about it. And it's so good that there's so much going on that, yes, it's empowering the scene in a lot of ways. However, it's drowning out the music in some ways too. Like if they just cranked it just a few more decibels up, I think it would have really kind of, shot us over the moon, if you will. But nonetheless, I can't wait till they release it. But the music on this has just been great. Outside of the hi-hat, whatever that was at the end of episode 2.
Oh, the drums and everything.
The drums, and yeah, that was still a little weird. But everything else has been pretty pretty okay, if not phenomenal for me.
Yeah, it's been a very different soundtrack, and Nicholas Britell is the name we're looking for.
There you go.
The composer, yeah.
Yep.
Just to give him credit, and it has been very different. It's been a very unique soundtrack, but I think this one, you talk about, and I'm trying to remember all of the music now because it was just so intense. You're so focused on it, sometimes you lose track of the music because it's just so integrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think with what we're seeing this time was a bit more of that return to the cinematic type of play, and that really that suspenseful and that tension that you can get with strings and with the symphonic type of approach, rather than some of the Blade Runner ish type of music, or the dystopian electronic kind of vibe that we were getting for a little while. And I'm not saying those don't work, but I think for some moments these things really are cool, and it was really cool to hear that come through. And there were actually a couple of moments you're like, oh my gosh, man, this music is killer right now.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's probably enough for our opening thoughts. But let's talk about the show. So we open up on Narkina 5, level 5, and rest in peace, Olaf. In the body bag. It was kind of creepy seeing him in that, to be honest. But what was that? You made a hand gesture now.
Yeah, I was giving him some love up top, and I was pouring out some of my 40 for him.
You were pouring one out for him? Is that what you got? You got a 40 there for him? And then Andor starts working Kino, right? I mean, it's pretty clear that this just takes place literally moments after the bag finally gets up there and they roll him out. So he starts working him, right? Telling him that tomorrow, like, it's got to happen now. And because when we talked about this, he's been noticing that every time someone is taken out or whatever, there's a new guy, it's like almost immediate. The very next day they replace him. So he knows this is the opportunity that's going to be here. And it may be a while before they get another opportunity unless someone shoves off or, for whatever reason, that has to be replaced.
Well, and he knows the Empire's on their heels and they're going to respond, because if they've got one problem with what happened on level 2 and they're frying 100 men, then he knows that they're going to respond. They've got to bulk up from that, but it will take time. And if this happens again, even in any kind of little one, they will respond, and this opportunity will be completely eradicated from the possibility. And so Andor just knows that the time is now. The iron's hot. You won't have a better opportunity. You won't find them at their weakest, even though technically you would think that they would probably be beefing up a little bit. But his point is they only have so much capacity to beef up. And this is where them being isolated on these little islands and stuff is not, to their benefit, even though it's difficult for prisoners to escape. It's also difficult for the Empire to respond quickly, to get more personnel out there as well in order to respond and really clamp things down. But then we go back to Andor's comments before of how much does the Empire really care and how much of a problem do they think they have? But they will recognize they have a problem if it happens a second time, and they won't let that happen.
Yep. Yeah, time's running out in a lot of ways. But he does mention that
Kino's in denial, though, right? I mean, Kino's in denial right now. I mean, he's in shock, and he's in denial that there's still a problem, to an extent. And his mind is just swimming. He doesn't know what to do. He's trying to make sense of what the next steps should even be. And while he's maybe thought about escape, I don't think that he's actually ever thought it was a real tangible opportunity that was going to be there for the taking. And now he's like, what's possible, what I need to do, and where my world has fallen apart, where I'm not going to escape. I'm going to die here. Just absorbing and processing all of that shock. But Andor can't give him that opportunity to grieve in any of those ways. You have to move. You have to move. You have to move.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's completely shell shocked. His world is completely turned upside down at this point. All his faith has been broken. Right? We talked about how he has been relying on the process and the system to set him free, and that's why he's been so militant and about operations and making sure that they do what they have to do, because he wants out of there, and now that's all gone. So there's nothing under the whole, everything has been pulled out from underneath him, right? And Andor makes some pretty good points here. He says he uses the line "power doesn't panic." Right. So on top of the short leash that's happening, or I guess the cloud that's starting to surface around them because of, uprisings and that sort of thing. On top of that to him, Andor looks at it as, they're afraid. right? They don't have enough guards. They feel this is their weak point. It takes. I was thinking about the Eldani episode where he's mentioned that, and maybe it's probably more headcanon, but he looks at situations and he looks for the weakest link, right? And that's kind of what he's attacking now, or he's literally going to be attacking the weakest link, which is this process of bringing in a new guard and the chaos that these guys are under because of not enough people, or too much red tape in terms of what it takes, and this going out and doing these types of inspections and all of that. He really wants to take advantage of that opportunity, and that calls back to 2 episodes ago when we mentioned you see him and he's looking around at what's happening, taking note of everything that's going wrong, and trying to figure out where is the weakest link at, right? So there's a I had a question here about what they were making, because Andor mentions it, right? And I still believe
They
that it
don't know
doesn't
either.
matter.
Yeah, they don't know either, right?
They don't know. Maybe it comes up later, like we said, season 2, next episode. He knows how to disassemble something because he worked on it. That'd be kind of cheesy at this point, but it's not important. I think it'd be more tragic if it really was like something like petty, right? Or unsubstantial in some way. That would even make it more disheartening, the fact that they were being processed like this, right, on program, as much as they were.
Yeah, these are just things that they use to make kitchen parts to keep people fed.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, but someone's got to make it.
What's that?
Someone has to make it, though.
Yeah, that's true. That moment there where he yells at him and says, "You don't have time." He says, "You don't have to be time to be stupid." He talks to Kino Loy. That's pretty surprising that he did that. And then later he tells him on program, right? He says program. He yells at him. And part of it, I think, is because he's in shock and he needs to get him, he's trying to get through to him, right? Break out of that, right? We got to go back on here. We got a mission to do, if you will. But I think a lot of it, too, is they're on equal footing at this point, right? They're no longer boss and, subordinate in any ways. They're both 2 people that are about to die. And I think that's pretty much, Kino's been disarmed. And if you look, even after that, I mean, yeah, he still asserts his power. And of course, he has his massive speech at the very end where he uses those, the managerial skills or the authoritative voice that he has and has had with all the people. He still uses all that. But at the end of the day, he's no different than anyone else at this point. Right? They're all just going to die. So very cool that we got to see that. The last thing I guess about this scene really was 2 things. The one, the line of I'd rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they want. And of course, we hear this later in Kino's speech. He reiterates this, right? But this stuck with him. And I have a feeling
this is the turnaround moment for Andor.
Yeah, it really
that
was.
That line really does feel like Andor has rounded that corner, and he has felt it personally to the point where he understands what the rest of the galaxy goes through. Now we'll have to see how this translates or how much momentum this gives him as he escapes, and especially since he's with Melshi now. But no, I think it was a great line. I mean, it was very poignant and very important for his character to be able to say this.
Yes.
But I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to keep giving into or keep getting snared in this net of sorts as well, to where I have to give in to their will, and they're going to take my life one way or another. I'm going to give it in the way that's going to do the most damage and be able to make a difference. And Luthen is in the back of his head, I'm sure, this entire time, giving it all at once. Give it to something real. Give it to something where you actually have an opportunity to actually make a difference and really enact true change and true influence over this monstrous body of power hungry people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important, like you said, it is important for him to utter those words, because without that, I mean, at the core, that is the Andor that we know when we get to Rogue One. And I'm not saying he's full-fledged there. This was the big transition moment. I mean, there's probably still more that has to happen, but this is a big chunk of it right here, right? Him uttering those words and sacrificing his life for the better good, or just not giving the Empire what they want, even if it doesn't, this is all kind of plays in the Luthen speech as well, right?
Right.
But yeah, he needs to utter those words. So hearing him say those is a pretty good transitional moment, for sure. There's and so I'll jump ahead a little bit, because I do want to talk about Kino Loy. In my head, and this was on the first view. Well, yeah, it was on the first viewing after I'd seen the very last scene about can't swim. that was tragic. Like the fact that he did that. And what got to me, and again, it's probably my own headcanon, but this is what I posted on Twitter, and this is what I truly believe. All the time, from the moment he realized that no one's getting out, right? And this kind of cuts, even when he's in there with Andor talking about it, they finally go into the cell block, and he's sitting there, and you can see him, and he's kind of like just still shell shocked, can't believe what's going on. In my head, he's already thinking through, okay, even if I do escape, even if I go through with all of this, the odds of me getting out are slim to none, because unless we have a vehicle, some way to get off this floating thing, I'm dead. I can't swim. I can't drown. In my head, he thought about that all night long. And when you see him, when he says no one is getting out, it's true, all of it, the music, they're never letting us go ever. We're going to die here or in the next place. I mean, I know he's talking to them, but I think for him, he's really trying to just come to peace and come to terms with the fact that there's a very good chance that, again, the escape plan is going to be swimming, and there's just no way for him. And I think he sleeps on that all night. I really do. I feel like in the morning when he gets up and he starts telling everybody get ready and get going, he's made peace with it, and he's accepted that, hey, maybe things will be better, but if not, that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, this is like your stages of grief thing, right? Where, I mean, you could see him, he's having to go through it really quickly because he knows he doesn't have much time to do all this. But yeah, he needs to go in. And I think him shouting, no one is getting out, was that first real outburst of admitting it to himself. Like you said, rather as much for anybody else of telling them what happened or what the reality is. But I think it was as much for himself to say it out loud and to say it with such, energy, and just conviction that, basically forcing himself to believe it at the same time so he can move on and figure out what to do. And yeah, I'm with you. I think he stewed on it all night. Now, whether he thought about the swimming aspect of it is an interesting thought I hadn't really considered, of how much they know about their facility, I guess, in general. I'm assuming they would all kind of know where they're at. I think when they flew up to it, they could see outside, right?
Well, yeah, and somebody like him, I mean, he knows how to like work buttons and all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, as long as he's been there, he's probably picked up the knowledge that they're not in Kansas.
Yeah.
On an island somewhere. But yeah, and, that was so Lauren says, I think he knew he wouldn't get out, but still did it for his guys. And that's exactly right. I think overnight, as he's thinking about it, I mean, who else does he have to do it for? He did it for himself, of course, in some ways. But he did it for his guys, and I think he did it because of what Andor said, right? I'm not going to let them win. I'll go out on my own terms. So, but we'll pick this up maybe at the very end, because I want to get to answer the question, what happened to Kino Loy? I've got some thoughts around that as well. But great stuff there. I thought the episode was really cool, too, because although it was primarily focused on, of course, Marquina 5, we did come back to Coruscant just very briefly. It sounds like the ISB kind of, their bait worked, or the ploy of staging the pilot's death, Krieger's pilot, and all that looked like it happened. And then Lonnie chimed in, and there was something about that, and I was like, okay, why is he?
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah,
stepping up, because he hadn't really said a whole lot. I mean, and now I want to go back and listen to the other episodes or watch them, because were there hints that he's been feeding intel?
Well, and I think a little bit too, because I think what we've seen before was Pendergast's his perception of Lonnie as being almost incompetent. And I think we had seen some people around there, maybe underperforming a little bit. And so it sounds like Lonnie's been kind of just pushing paper and dragging things a little bit. So, but it was a peculiar statement, but then it made sense at the same time. But then it made a lot more sense whenever we see it with Luthen. Yeah. But it still made sense, right? The thing that we would do would be we would go investigate. So Dedra didn't seem super thrilled about that, though.
Yeah, I saw that too. She seemed almost kind of annoyed, but at the same time, I thought, well, maybe she just doesn't care enough, Well,
and I didn't know if someone kind of usurped her enthusiasm and her momentum, because even when she tried to hand off the tablet to Pendergast, he was not interested. He just walked right by her and was like, basically, yes, they're in my grasp, kind of thing. It was almost like he was just, folding his hands back and forth and rubbing them together. But yeah, there was something off though with her, and I don't know what was going through her mind, because then she kind of bailed, right?
Yeah.
So something definitely she didn't like how it all went down, but I don't know that's necessarily anything that's a flag of sorts in any kind of way, unless she's got her eyes set on Lonnie now, for whatever reason. But I don't know why that would have been a flag for her.
I don't either. Like it's too good of a cover, in my opinion. But maybe she's just made of better stuff. But yeah, I did see. I picked up on it as well. She kind of, she makes like a quick glance over to her right, and then she just kind of turns in on her heels and walks off, kind of stomping off almost.
Now, in all fairness, she always looks irritated. So I mean,
well, yeah, this kind of comes with the territory of being part of the Empire. You're either you're always fearing for your life, or
you go into scowling school there for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, right. That alone. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if there's anything there. I think it could just be the fact that, like I said, it was her plan, and it wasn't exactly 100% her plan because of the way Lonnie came in and threw in that last piece, and Partagrass enjoyed it. But I think she was kind of over it and be like, okay, whatever. I mean, really, the objective for her was just, we don't want to get busted, and mission accomplished. And so what if they go do the investigation, as long as they're not coming too hard, which I think was the point of that. Okay, we flip back over to Narkina 5, and I did the math.
I knew you would. As soon as I saw it on the thing, I was like, Albert's going to do this.
Yep. So 2189 to 2155, a total of 34 days that he was at Narkina 5, so just over a month. Man, there's so many good speeches here from Kino Loy, but he says there's only one way out. We're done with counting shifts. There's only then and now. He says there is only one way out. Play it how you want, but I'm going to assume I'm already dead and take it from there. And so this is where I felt like that was confirmation that he, again, made peace with the fact that he was going to die. And if he gets out, so be it, right? If there's something that he's not anticipating or luck turns in his favor, then so be it. But as far as he's concerned right now, he's going to die one way or the other. And so there's no point, which was good because I think the people, his men needed to hear that.
Absolutely. It's the old adage. There's no one more dangerous than someone with nothing left to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think aside from that, the only person more dangerous than that person is the person who's already dead.
Yeah.
And that believes they're already dead. And so that's where he's gotten himself to. And I think, again, it's kind of a defense mechanism, I think, against trying to confront what the reality of what that means is in your own mortality. But yeah, I mean, it's exactly what his folks need to hear.
Yeah.
And everyone will rally behind that. Take your chance. It's kind of like what Jyn Erso says, right? We take one chance and then we take the next until all of them are spent. We just keep going. Don't look back. Keep moving. And he says this later on too.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up the one next to you. Keep moving.
Yeah, that speech is like almost a shadow of Jyn Erso's, really short couple lines, but the same message is there, right?
Right.
They head out. He says, don't tell the night shift. They head outside into the skywalk or the sky bridge. That, I don't know if you ever noticed in the credits, but it's listed as the voice of God. The voice that they hear.
Right.
And I can't remember if it was used. What's that?
It's this nerd that's the voice of God too.
He's just, I
was
laughed
surprised when they showed his face. I was like, yes.
But yeah, it says silence on the sky bridges, or the whole unit gets fried from now on. So not only, because of what happened on level 2, because there's probably rumors that people are starting to chatter and talk, and it may be spreading. The Empire is now saying, look, everybody's quiet in the sky bridges. They're not allowing any communication whatsoever. So again, this speaks to that fear. That speaks to the panic that Andor was talking about earlier. And also, of course, they go back to working. And
it gives him more credibility too. Of the Empire is they are responding. We just don't know how they're responding. Mm-hmm. We cannot wait. The time is now. We won't ever get a better chance, and that's why he just keeps hounding it about it. And he's absolutely right. I mean, they will adjust.
We have a very quick scene at this point going over to Marva's home.
Yeah, this was completely out of the blue, like this return to Ferrix, wasn't it? I mean, I know they mentioned, I know they ended up mentioning a little bit later on, but it was just completely. This is, I think, the one scene that was a little out of place, if you will.
I think it was. I mean, yeah, I was thinking, well, maybe it's. I mean, they got to have touch points, right? They don't want us to not keep in mind that this stuff is brewing. I think they're just. I mean, if you think about it, all roads lead to Ferrix.
Right.
What's that?
Yeah, don't forget about it, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of what it was. But it did a couple of other things as well. I mean, it establishes that everybody's coming to Ferrix. Everyone's coming to Ferrix in the next year.
Party on Ferrix.
It's going to be a huge, massive party. But on top of that, it reminds us that Cinta is there. it reminds us that Corv, which is one of Deidre's dudes, is also there, and that they're watching Marva. And then we get, probably where I wouldn't say the lead. To me, those are the leads. But what we got was that Marva is not, taking her meds, and I don't know. This almost kind of sets her up to be, a loss in the next couple of episodes. Like, she's frail, she's going to make mistakes, she might do something. I think we need that. I think Andor's going to need that, really, to kind of push him over the edge. We kind of talked about that before, but
yeah, we know we have that scene at home where he says, "I'm tired of losing," and I think we had speculated at the time something has happened to Marva, and now when it makes sense now with this experience that this is that corner that he maybe has actually formally rounded it, and we'll see that come to life when he actually voices this to a Bix or to a Brasso or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And we got a doctor now. I mean, there's a doctor involved, so I guess it's serious at this point.
And we have 2 doctors in this series now. One that's a kind of a lapdog Empire doctor, but a Imperial prisoner doctor, I guess. But
the other thing too, I was just thinking about the other thing that this scene did is it established that the Empire is well embedded in Ferrix now, because they were panning around. You could see, pretty much in every shot on the exterior shot that they did. Well, it was all exterior shots really, but you saw stormtroopers everywhere.
Right. And it gives Lonnie credibility a little bit later on, at least from a viewer aspect, when he's talking to Luthen about the reality on Ferrix. We know he's being genuine. And so I think it helps establish that too, that it's not just hyperbole, or it's not just him luring him into a trap.
Right, or just trying to get out, say whatever he can to get out. Yeah,
exactly. As viewers, we know that this is true. He's not overselling this.
Yep. Oh man, so this next scene was great. We go over to Coruscant at the Chandrillan embassy. Give me your thoughts on Davos Skulden. Was he sleazy enough for you? He came across as a what's the actor? I'm trying to think of the actor's name that played the Goblin in Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah,
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
There was almost like a Willem Dafoe kind of.
They could have got Willem Dafoe to play this role, actually.
Well, they could, but he's not. The Chandrillans usually have like a British accent, though, right? So I'm sure he could have done one.
He could do anything, man.
Yeah, that's true. But he came across as a posh Willem Dafoe in some ways for me. But what did you think of his character?
No, I agree with you. I liked him. I thought it was the way the scene was written, and it was very clever, right? And it was this political maneuvering between Mon Mothma and Davos Skulden, which I thought was a lot of fun. And Tay just kind of, chilling, watching the fireworks and trying to be diplomatic at the same time. But you could tell, what I liked about his character, Davo, is that he just read Mon Mothma like right away. And she's not really hiding it though either. He knows that she doesn't want to have this conversation, and he's already leading in and saying, people view us as the underground, the scum of the earth type of thing, but we're just enablers. We're just helping people, do the things that the Empire is deprived of. It's your money, man. Yeah. Do what you want with it. We just have this great opportunity we can offer people, and so I think he was he was sleazy in the right ways.
Yeah.
And again, it was really the surprise of it all was what he wanted, right? And Mon Mothma's insistence, no, we really need to pay you. I'm not going to offer you, favors. And because that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh, God, what favor does he want? And it wasn't until he mentioned his son, I was like, oh, snap. That, and then that hit the nerve with Mon Mothma. And the way that Genevieve O'Reilly played this was absolutely, the trembling, the quiver at her voice, the absolute fury you can see just simmering below the surface, especially, and having him kind of mentioned her husband before, and, that link of what he would be capable of. And then now this on top of that, and just what the ramifications of that would be, and he kind of set her up before, which I thought was really clever.
Oh yeah, he played it really well.
Yeah, sorry. Because she was like, well, they were talking about Chandrillan customs, right? And, boundaries can be liberating, but also, she came back and said that, they understand each other because, appreciation of Chandrillan custom.
Sure.
And he completely flipped it on her and turned it right back here. And that, well, how dare you presume that I subscribe to this Chandrillan custom, right? And then this part of our ancestry, it was just, and you could see that's where the relationship with Perrin really, really came in. and what that would mean for her daughter. And just again, it goes back to what she and Luthen have talked about, is what are you willing to sacrifice in your conscience, in your ethical and moral grounding, who you are as a person and what you believe in, and what are you willing. And this episode was all about sacrifice. I mean, they could have named this episode Sacrifice, and every single person would have been a story in and of itself about what are you willing to give up for the cause? What are you willing to give up for freedom? What are you willing to give up for those around you? And the price is really, really high. And so how much are you willing to give up of yourself in some cases? And Luthen and Mon Mothma are the two people that are just so deep in it now and Luthen said it really well, there's nothing left to give because you've literally given everything.
Yeah, this Davo does a really good job of setting everything up. He's very con manish in that way, in that regard. Yeah. Getting her to say what he wants her to say, having those words come out of her mouth instead of his was perfect.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it's several parts that really just get under her skin. The fact that he has some kind of relationship with her husband, her estranged husband that she doesn't really care for, of course, for a number of reasons. That's one. Two, it's the power that would come with this and how that would look as somebody like her as a senator suddenly, in this kind of even if it's purely traditional, whatever.
Yeah. Or even the business relationship side of it. He made the point of view of tarnishing your brand, your image.
Yeah. I mean, she's now tied to this guy. So what does that say about her? Right. On top of that, I think it's just, she doesn't approve of this particular tradition, like for all the right reasons, because of Perrin. And she doesn't want her daughter to fall into that same trap. She doesn't want to see her daughter fall into this loveless, relationship that she has with somebody because they were arranged and, she never got to really get with who she wanted, which was Tay or whoever it is that's, in her mind. So, I mean, I think she wants better for her daughter too. But at the end of the day, it's really about that power piece of it. What does that say? This really is a power grab for him in a lot of different ways. But then somebody as esteemed as her in the Senate, and it's just bad news all around. So
what do you think about
I
his
love
comment?
the fact that when she said, "Will you reconsider?" or she said, "Well, yeah, will you consider it?" And she said no, and then she said, "Tay will see you out." Like she just cuts him off and like sends him out, like get the hell out of here. And I think the question that I have is, he seems to think she's going to think about it. This goes back to your point about what are we willing to sacrifice. But what do you think? Is she really going to put any thought into this, or is it going to? Do you think
that was going to be my question
over time she will?
That was going to be my question to you. Actually, was he called her out on it too. I'm not considering this. He goes, "That's the first untrue thing you've told me today."
Yeah, right.
That you've said. I mean, he called her out right away that she really is, and maybe that's why she is so
angry.
While it's fury and everything, it's also fear and anger at herself that he's not wrong. And I would not have gathered that from her, just how angry she was and the way that she abruptly changed it. And I mean, I think your initial response is probably no, but then your brain kicks in and you're like, oh my God, but my back is against the wall. I don't know what to do.
What other options do I have?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe this kid's not so bad. Maybe he's not like his dad. I mean, there's a whole lot of paths you could go down, with all of this. But I mean, the logical side of your brain starts kicking in rather than both sides kick in. I'm not saying that she's neglecting her daughter or would put her in a position to have this type of thing, but I think she's also worried that her daughter is becoming enough like Perrin that this type of relationship, if she were to even entertain it, regardless of who it was, that type of family would basically seal her daughter's fate to become Perrin. And that just absolutely terrifies her. And it just terrifies her that even more that she's considering that, because like you just said, what other options does she have? I mean, which way do you turn at this point? Tay has told her the list is short for people who can help us. And it's pretty much one person. It's that short, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got so many characters that are so gray, and we've got so many characters that are sketchy, even in the series, right? Luthen, Saul Guerrera, a number of people. So for her character, though, Like she had this is probably just me projecting more than anything. She has to be that light. She has to be the solid person in the series. We kind of need somebody like this, right? And we know this is probably what, lends itself to her becoming basically in charge of the rebellion, right? Later on down the road here. At the same time, she's not infallible. And I would think the only way that she would even consider this is if she was trying to think 2-3 steps ahead of like, okay, well, let me just do this. I'll do it for now, because she doesn't have a lot of options, like we said, right? The money's already out there. It's just a matter, unless she can figure out a way to get this money hidden, this 400,000 credits or whatever it is, the Empire is going to find out, and then all hell's going to break loose, right?
Right.
So she has to do something. So under duress, I think she would go through with maybe setting something up initially, but thinking that, okay, well, then I'll just do this to get her out, right? Or I'll figure out a way to fix all that a little bit later. And if stories go the way they normally go, that never really happens. Like that becomes the tragedy, right? She does make a mistake and she gambles with her daughter's life with the best intentions, but it's just yet another tragedy that's going to make her, somebody who's very isolated and completely. Because I'm trying to think ahead to like Rebels, right? We have no mention of her daughter, of her husband, and I get that was because it was probably written that way. But if they're going to back into that, in my head, Perrin's gone at that point, and unfortunately, her daughter is too. Whether that's because she's married and she's now become a jerk face like her dad was, or she dies in some way, or whatever it is. But I think Mothma is set to have tragedies, some really bad tragedies, very soon, because I think that's going to galvanize her and make her, a stronger leader in the long term.
I think you're right, though, and I think Mon Mothma in particular is feeling that the rebellion has to stand for something, and it has to stand for something pure, because the Empire is so evil that it's such a slippery slope. As soon as you start to chip away and give these pieces of yourself away, both literally and figuratively, I think for Mon Mothma and the rebellion as an extension, then who are you really when you come out the other side?
It's a slippery slope too.
Yeah,
like, where do you stop? I mean, once you do it, it just
exactly. I mean, and that's where Luthen's at, right? I mean, when he said it before, you have to check your conscience. He is at that point where he is literally there are no boundaries, because he is going to do whatever it takes to win. Mon Mothma, and you've said this in previous shows, she has to think ahead of what is left if we win. It's not even a when we win; it's an if we win. What's going to be left? We've fought for all, we've given so much, but for us to be just as corrupt and to owe all of these favors and have this built on lies and deceit and sketchy deals and things like that. I mean, it's how much is too much.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know the answer to that, but she feels, and she has this pressure put on herself, and I think rightfully so, that it doesn't feel like anybody else is really viewing it that from that respect either. They're just going, we hate the Empire so much, we're going to do whatever it takes. Saw Gerrera, Luthen, everybody, and all these other people that are accumulating around her. Or you have another bunch of people that are like, well, yeah, we care, but we certainly like our lifestyle. So I care enough, but not quite enough.
Yeah.
So she's the only, she really much feels isolated on an island right now. And more so, the island is shrinking all around her.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. I have a feeling she's going to make that decision. As much as it sucks to say that, I think all the roads point to that at some point. Otherwise, he wouldn't say that.
Let me say this to you. Let me ask you this question. Rather, it's not a telling. I'll tell you a question. If she were to sacrifice her daughter, Lita, to this situation, or not sacrifice, but open this opportunity and this door, knowing that it's in her, in Mon Mothma's opinion, is wrong. How would you look at Mon Mothma in after such an event or decision?
Human. Like, again, I don't want to give her a free pass because it's a horrible thing to do, but it's unless there's other situations. I think they've presented this as though this is the only option, right? This is why Tay went through all the data. He looked at all the different options, and this is really the only thing that's available. I think they've kind of set it up that way, even if they haven't explicitly said so. So if this really is the only option, then given the choice between losing, her position of power, being in prison, killed, the family going away, all that stuff, all the that comes from the Empire finding out who she is and what she's doing. If it's just a small sacrifice now that she feels like she can fix later down the road, I think she's going to do it. But I think what that says about her is that she's, you know, she's not perfect and she's going to make mistakes. And given the circumstances, I think they've said enough. They've done enough for me, at least, to again, not give her a free pass, but just kind of understand why she would do something as crazy as this is.
Yeah, there's actually one line, and I know we need to get moving, but there's one line that keeps coming up throughout this episode as I was watching her scenes, was actually Darth Vader in both the comics and as in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Basically, she's being given the gift of learning loss, excuse me. You know, and you don't know what it means to lose until you've lost something.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And that's so, I mean, it's very indicative of what a number of characters in Star Wars go through, which is, I guess in a roundabout way, what I was saying earlier about Mon Mothma. She's got to have some kind of loss. She's got to go through some level of tragedy to be the person that she is, to just break up free from the Empire and from the Senate, I should say. Break free from the Senate and join that cause and give her life for that cause. Yeah. Rob's got a cool comment in here. He says, I think maybe her husband finds out that she was willing to give her daughter to this criminal, so they leave her.
I mean, it's another reason to poison the well and weaponize that relationship, right? Even if Perrin would have been like, yeah, that's kind of cool. You know, he would have been like, no, here's my final opportunity to really drive a permanent wedge. This is what your mom was willing to do.
I think Perrin, if Perrin is so selfish though, so I can see him doing that, but only if he has something lined up, right? He knows the Empire is going to take care of him, or he's got a lot of wealth and doesn't need her, which may be the case. Maybe he gets 50%. I don't know, whatever, how that works in Star Wars, but I think he would do it if that were the case. I can't see him giving up his life, right? His lifestyle, unless that's going to still be guaranteed in some way, which I think there are ways that can still happen. But
I have no doubt that Perrin's probably got a little side pocket of money and stuff. He's probably been stashing things away for a long time.
Oh, that's what you're going to say. Little.
No, not like a side piece. Hustle. No, well, hustles are peace.
I don't know what the difference.
He's probably got a little of everything, actually.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. There's a very quick scene at Luthen's shop of horrors or wonders, whatever that is.
Wonder.
I think it's antiquities is the official term.
Right.
But Clay is being real cryptic about seeing different signs and the whatever. They have a very intricate system of how to signal that when this person wants to meet with Luthen, and they ticked all the boxes, and so Luthen decides, well, gotta go. It's gonna, there goes the whole day, is what he says, and he takes off. And he mentions it's been a year since they've seen each other, and that sort of thing. And we can get it. I want to get into that here just a little bit, because I do want to get your thoughts on who this person is now, because.
You know what was interesting though? I mean, this was Lonnie. I mean,
well, no, but I mean, who Lonnie really is, though. I think there's.
Oh, yeah, he's a patsy. Anyway, but yeah, I think what was interesting though is Clea wanted to get involved, and she was like, "Let me take care." I'm pretty sure she said, "Take care of him."
Yeah.
Not take care of it, but she's like just itching to kill somebody. I think. And she's like,
did she say that?
I need to see someone dead. Like someone has to die to satisfy this itch of mine because I'm really a secret Sith Lord. That's basically what I think.
I don't think she said that, but that's hilarious if she did.
I'm pretty. I'll pull it up and read the subtitles while you talk for an hour. I mean, I'll do it.
Find out, because that would be hilarious if she's really just like, it's another instance of her wanting to kill somebody. She's out for blood in some way.
Challenge accepted. Character.
Okay. So while you're doing that, we'll go back to Narkina 5. And this is where we're getting the whole speech, right? Don't die until you've put up a fight. He keeps uttering one way out. They're going to work and doing what they're supposed to, but you can tell like he's just so hyper focused now. I mean, he utters that word one way out to Cassian as they're passing by each other. Burnock is in this as well. I just, not to jump ahead, but man, that sucks. I thought he was going to live. This is the guy that was working with Cassian earlier on, and they were the first two that you kind of got the idea that they were working in cahoots and trying to come up with a plan. And he's the one that dies on the bridge. He gets just shot in the chest. So that kind of sucked for me. But Cassian heads over to the pipe. Oh, did you pull it up?
Yes, I do it. So she says, "Let me take care of it." Okay, so I was wrong.
It's okay.
But still, the way that she says it, though, I'm still not going to back down. That I think she would.
She wants blood.
She would have pulled. I think she has no tolerance. Is my point.
Yeah.
Like she just has. If she's saying this is a risk, this is a high risk. Of course, Luthen's like, well, if he's betrayed us, it's too late anyway. It doesn't matter. But yeah, no. So I was wrong, but I'm still right.
Okay. So we get Cassian working on the pipes a little bit. We get the shenanigans with the guards, right? There's 2 guards that are there, but because they have to go do the inspections, they leave, which lowers the amount of people, which kind of exposes them. This is exactly what we were talking about, right? The same thing happened when Cassian was being processed. They were arguing about who was going to be there, and they didn't have enough guards, and they were doing inspections and whatever else. So that all worked out really well for him. The pipe breaks, the water came out, and that's the first thing I thought. I realized what it was. I thought they were going to set off some kind of a fire alarm, right? And then the water would come down and short out the floor, not that they'd flood the floor with water.
Right. And who puts water in metal pipes?
It's aluminum.
Aluminum?
It's some. Stop it. Just stop. I know what you're doing. It's Star Wars science, and they've got a metal that is anti-corrosive in some way, so it's fine. It's all fine now. How are you? By the way, we're going to talk about that too, because that piece was back again. Okay, so they start the diversion. I'm just going to rip through all this because it's we all know what happens, right? The diversion happens. They stop the lift. The prison break starts. This is where Burnock dies. That poor new guy, like, what was he thinking? He just shows up and suddenly gets zapped, and there's a prison break, and he lived all of about 2 seconds. I thought he was going to make it for sure, but he did not. They yell, "Spark the floor," and I was like, "Oh, get on the tables." That's an incredible thing. I'd never even considered that. But I was the moment for me was Kino Loy looking down after, and that poor guy was standing in the water. I think he had to die in order to short it out. So thank you for your commitment there to
your
the
sacrifice,
cause.
right.
Your sacrifice to the cause. But Kino, like the way Andy Serkis played that, where he looks down and then you see it, his face says everything. Like he's just got this level of determination now, a new life, if you will. He's cheated death from that floor going off, and so he's ramped up. I mean, this is a great moment. I watched it over and over again. And that's when he screams attack, right? And so we get this whole, and from here on out, it's just completely chaotic. I mean, they were throwing things at the guards. There weren't enough guards because the other ones had taken off. So there really only were 2. And then the guy that was kind of operating the door up on top. I was surprised how many people did die, though. Like, we lose Zal, who was one of the teammates as well. I talked about Burnock already. Who else left? There was another. I think everybody else made it out, but I was surprised that Zal passed.
I mean, there were probably 6 or 8, I think, that we saw fall, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a lot. I mean, some of them were not named characters, but I mean, there was loss. I mean, the guards were sitting there firing at him. Now, they probably should have taken more of them out, but, less exciting that way. But
sure.
But it was kind of cool how Andor got up on there and took some of them out that way.
I'll tell you what, Ham.
I'm glad he didn't forget about the dude that was on the ground behind him, though, because I'm like, dude, he didn't die. Like, what's he going to shot him? I was like, okay, thank you, Andor. You've restored my faith in people taking care of business.
Yeah, I don't know. What is it? One in the chest, 2 in the head? All right, sorry. I don't know why I know that.
I don't know either. I'm slightly worried and concerned.
It was in a movie. Come on. I don't do that. That's not what I do. Ham, though.
That's even more suspicious. Edit this out.
Ham is a badass. Ham is the guy with we called him Slick, I think, in the very first episode he was introduced. Mm-hmm. He was like killing people, screaming one way out, come and fight. He released some folks. He saved Melchi at one point when Melchi was coming around the corner, and almost bit it. He saved him, and then he gets away. I hope we see him again. I was not expecting him to be the cool character that he turned out to be.
Right.
So they decide to try to fire. They want to fry everybody on level 5. This is where we get the voice of God, the nerd that's running the microphone there. And he's like running through the list of floors and the areas that have been exposed and all that. He's just like, forget it, fly the whole level. Like everybody is going to die. And that's when they kind of walk in, and we get this really great scene on a lot of different ways, but really it's more Kino's moment than anything else. And Cassian sitting there trying to just encourage him in a couple different ways. But I want to talk about the levity here, because I was not expecting that one Imperial guard where he says turn it off.
He's like, that's there's so many negative.
Well, he says turn it off first, and then so Kino shoots the other guy, and he's like, I'll turn it off. Hey, right here. I will do that. No worries.
And then the other guy was like the total corporate monkey, right? Of well, shut the power down. Do you realize how many weeks it will take to get this up? Andor's like,
yeah, like I don't care, dude. This is not you're thinking about the wrong things,
right? What part of this makes you think I care?
Read the room, boy. Read the room. A guy, I was laughing. I thought it was great, and
yeah, it was
that they did all that. So, the him screaming on program to them was pretty powerful, and they immediately complied, because that's their thing.
I like that they looked at him in shock for like, wait, really? Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. So we won't go through the speech, but
you wrote the whole thing out. Here, yeah.
The whole thing, I wrote it out because I just love this speech to No Man's End. But I guess what were some of the moments for you, or I guess your thoughts on the speech itself and how it started before Cassian was like, "Is that the best you got, dude? We need more. Okay, need more intensity and go." But what'd you think?
I mean, I think that the most powerful moments there, where he's looking at Andor and he's using Andor's words and giving him that credit too of saying you were right. And the conviction that was behind, those turns of phrase that this is, give it all because they're going to take it all, and you'd rather give it all in service of something rather than. And again, it's nice to see this flow right from Luthen to Andor, and then Andor inspiring others or convincing others. I don't know if you want to call it inspiration, but convincing others to do this as well. And you see this message starting to permeate. And how many people heard that message? How many people are going to do something with that later on? Yeah, and so those are I think that was the big takeaway for me, is like, what does this start? What is the spark, right? That Poe talks about all those years later. That spark, we got to see it front and center right here. And so how many of these people rejoin and find a rebel cell at some point beyond just Andor and Melshi? Yeah, so I think Lauren Cassian said, we need the speech faster and more intense. Yep. George Lucas was in the room.
Yep, literally echoing George Lucas.
All right, but yeah, I mean, and then he gets in that groove. I mean, when you did that, passion comes out, and he starts just speaking for himself about what this means, and this is what Kino Loy is able to do. This is who he is in this moment in time of what he's been doing for the last however many years.
Yeah,
and he's using it in service of all of these people rather than in service of the Empire and keeping things on track and all about the numbers and whatever else, right?
Yeah. Well, this speech had to be delivered by, it's like Andor said, it has to be you. You do this every single day. Right?
It's a credibility thing, right? I mean, you need someone who's credible in the room to give the message. Yeah.
The clout. And not only that, but somebody who arguably was so pro the system, delivering the speech in the way he did, that's
I don't know about pro,
sends a message.
I don't know. What do you mean by pro the system?
Well, he was the one that was in charge and telling him, like, this is my shop. I run it. Here's what you're going to do, right? Keeping everybody in line, again, for all the reasons we've talked about. Somebody diverging 180 degrees from that completely. I mean, throwing that all out is powerful in itself.
Yeah. If I can do it, so can you, kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, again, not to harp on or to kind of go on about Andy Serkis's performance, but my goodness, every freaking line of this was amazing.
It's justified. You just shell all the accolades on Andy Serkis that you would like, and I think it's all well within your right.
I will say this: there were moments when he was talking, when they cut to the voiceover, it sounded like Snoke was delivering the message.
Yeah, Snoke Kino Loy, man.
It's Snoke Kino Loy, yeah. But so here are some of my favorite parts of the speech. I won't do the whole thing, but wherever you are right now, get up, stop the work, get out of yourselves, take charge, and start climbing. Great stuff. We will never have a better chance than this. I would rather die trying to take them down and giving them what they want. And he's looking at Andor as he says that, confirming that your message was read loud and clear, and I'm with you. I stand with you in that regard. We will never have a better chance than this. Oh, sorry, that's what you said that one. There is one way out. He starts that, and then at the very end, it becomes the mantra that's repeated over and over and over again. But the first time he says that in this speech, he says it with such power and such conviction and such steadiness. Like there's something about it that's almost like calming in the situation that I think people it resonates with folks. And of course, throughout the speech, they do a masterful job of editing, cutting back and forth to the prison break and the guards huddling down, right? When they're talking about they're scared of us and you see them all cowering and that power shift has happened. Just it all kind of blends in, and then throw in the music, and my goodness, it's just, everything you want. Here's the other ones is you see someone who's confused, someone who's lost, you get them up and moving, keep them moving until we put this place behind us. So again, speaking to, we're a brotherhood. We're all in this together. You look out for the other person. This isn't just about yourself anymore. We all have to go, we're all doing this.
But then again, we see these people falling and basically getting trampled too. So
I saw that. Yeah.
Message wasn't really well received, but
well, they were on the sky bridge, and they, was that speaker was out. So those guys, they didn't hear it.
Okay.
It was going to get fixed later that day. They just hadn't gotten around to it yet. So, and then the other one was, if we can fight half as hard as we've been working, we will be home in no time.
Right.
So, and then from there, it's just the one way out kind of mantra. And that music, again, it's just swelling and starting to build and build and build in the background while it's happening. And all this, of course, leads to that very last moment when they finally get to the very end, and they're just like lemmings jumping off, and some of them are getting shoved off. And we get that moment of can't swim, which was
shocking.
Great
comparison. The lemmings. That was actually a really great comparison.
Yeah. Well, it was, and it was so shocking to see that, because it was a twist, that, and then, the arranged marriage kind of thing. I wasn't expecting that either, but this one was, I think, and honestly, I saw people that were emotional, the first time. I was not, but on the second viewing, I don't know what it was. I got emotional about it. Like, because I don't know. I mean, that the character himself has gone through such a transformation in such a short time, that you don't want that for him. And I guess, so to get to the question of what happened to Kino Loy, in my head, I think he died. I don't think he stayed behind. I think if he stayed behind, then he would just be back where he was. And that goes against, my theory of him kind of being up all night thinking about things. So, did he go back? One of two things either happened. Either he just, after the last man was out, he waited up there until every person that was still available, that was an eye shot or earshot of him, was gone. He then took his own life and just jumped in, right? Made a run for it, or tried to make a swim for it, even if he knew he couldn't. Who knows? Maybe he gets by or whatever. I think that's how he goes out. Or he turns around and goes back in, picks up a blaster, and just waits until, they show up.
Young guns it.
Yeah. And goes out that way. But I just don't see him. I don't see him giving in. So I don't think he lives, to be honest. Although I know people in the chat, I saw people talking about they hope he lives and there's a chance and all that. I would love for that to happen. For his character and the way he was written, I don't know, kind of flies in the face of what he believes in and all the words and everything he said, I guess, for me.
Well, I agree with that perspective on it, but I think he does live. And I think it's from the other side of it, is that the Empire, at some point, whoever this person was that incited this, they want to know who that person is. And they won't kill him. Well, hopefully I think they'll have the restraint to not kill him, and they'll bring him in and get as much information out of him as possible. Of how this was possible. How did they learn all of these things? How did they get around? How did they, how was this even possible? And so I think that's why Kino Loy is really important to the Empire, and not seeing him die and not seeing a body kind of suggests that I don't know if I would see him taking his own life. Maybe I could see him kind of going off on the Young Guns kind of way and just going out in the blaze of glory. Mm-hmm. Maybe jumping off and drowning. He seemed not interested in that, and I don't blame him. Drowning seems to be a pretty horrible death to me. It's on my list of ways not to die. But I think the Empire spares him because I think they want to know what the heck happened here and what to do about it. And if he's last man standing on this bridge, then they don't necessarily need to kill him if they've got, 5, 6, a dozen or more, guards up there and they've got him cornered. Yeah. And somebody somewhere has to have taken note of all of this and given an order at some point saying, hey, well, yeah, kill as many as you want. Keep the guys who seem to be the ones who are the leaders of all of this, because we need to know. We need information about what just happened here. The Empire's they're not that arrogant, that dumb. They know they need information about what's happening and what's going on.
Yeah. I saw Gilroy had mentioned that, so Gilroy's not confirming that he lived or he died. I mean, I think what I heard was he was talking about, he would be open to the idea of Kino coming back in like season 2. So I just want to be careful that I know I've seen people say he lived. There's been no confirmation that he has.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no on-screen confirmation at the very least, right? So
right.
So I think if I were Gilroy, I'd leave that open too, because I mean that's half the fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I love the character, but really, I don't know. It just, there's something about his sacrifice. And now, okay, so I'll play the other side, because I kind of want him to die. I know that sounds terrible and it sounds horrible, but
you don't want
for
him
me,
to
that's
suffer
fuel
anymore
for
either.
What's that?
You don't want him to suffer anymore though either, right?
No, nothing like that. I just mean like his death, these things have to fuel Andor. I hate to be selfish about this, right? But these things have to mean something. And if you make him live, then I think it undermines what happened, this scenario. Now, the plus side of that, or the positive side of that, is, okay, now we get a chance for Andor to, I don't know, rescue Kino Loy or something, right? He goes back and returns the favor of some sort. Okay, that would be fine. I'd be cool with that. I don't know. It's narratively, I can see both sides. I think I prefer that he not come back, but that's just
fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah. But what did you think?
It was good.
That's good. That shot when they were...
Yeah, we kind of talked about a lot of it throughout. I mean, again, the whole scene was just absolutely perfect. I mean, like you said, the overarching monologue while the activity is going on, you see everyone pulling in the same direction. I mean, it was just really powerful. And again, where it culminated was heartbreaking. It was just absolutely heartbreaking. And seeing his own heartbreaking, I think that was the hardest of all, of saying this is the end of the line. Like, there's nowhere else to go. I mean, that's the really hard part. But I think that's the fun part too of all of this, and the debate that we're having now of whether he lives or dies. I think that's what makes it fun. I mean, because there's good arguments on both sides of why he would live or why he would die. And it's a matter of what direction we take. But when you look at the character in that moment, I don't know that he knows what to do either, because he's terrified. He's disappointed. He's scared. He's, his chances feel spent. So what's that next choice that he has? And did he get to make the choice, or did they stun him, before he could get off? And again, we're not giving any of that type of information, of course, but.
Yeah, and I don't think we will. Like, I think if he shows up, he just shows up in season 2. They're not going to give us the background. They're not going to. Yeah, we're done with the story.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something. It wouldn't be. It would be definitely Star Wars to not come back to that character at all and just right. Let it hang. What happened to Snoke Kino Loy, and where did he actually go? Did he survive? Did he become something else?
Like Snoke? Yes, I see what you're doing. Knock it off. This is not that. No, we didn't move on, but this is really where it comes down to. I was just thinking, like, where have I had this conversation before? It's that whole freaking Larry Kasdan and George Lucas conversation they had when they were writing Empire Strikes Back.
Yep.
And who lives and who dies. That's really what it comes down to. Like, Larry's position was that there needs to be loss, and you have to have people that die. And Lucas was like, no, people need to live. They need to have a happy ending. And I can see both sides. But for somebody like Kino Loy, he's not the Cassian Andor. He's not like the Luke and the Leias and all that stuff. At some point, yeah, they're going to pass, but you need them to go on. They have to champion the cause. And somebody like Kino, for me, is one of those characters that does have to sacrifice so that all of this stuff means even more to the characters and more to us later down the road. That's where my stance.
No, and I absolutely agree with that perspective too, because with Andor, it has to mean something there, and he has to experience that loss. He has to experience those choices that sometimes he gets to make and sometimes he doesn't get to make.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to see both sides of it, and he has to understand this is why you fight the fight. But I think it's also what ends up jading him over time too, and what you would think of it more like a callus on your hand if you play an instrument or something, right?
Yeah.
You just do it enough, and you're not immune to it,
Right.
but the effects they're dulled over time, and you start to get a little harder, right? And then so I think we have to see these types of moments. We have to have that loss for Andor. He can't have all of his BFFs around him all the time. And I mean, you and I think we were on the same page. I think we thought Kino Loy was as good as dead anyway. It would have made a lot of sense for all of those reasons for him not to survive this in more of an on-screen death as well, right?
Yeah.
And I was very much prepared for that to be the case, because that would be very powerful, right? I mean, it'd be a bit cliche, but it would be very powerful, because giving your life to save everyone around you for all the reasons, right? And again, it helps Andor in that moment, especially if he's tackled as something happens to Kino. I mean, again, very cliche, but very powerful, right?
Right. Yeah, because he could have. I mean, he could have got Melshi and said, "Hey, let's all jump 3 of us, and together we pull him across," kind of thing.
We Thelma and Louise it.
Yep.
I'm gonna make all the references tonight to like every other movie out there.
So, but yeah, that's why he got pushed off, because he really
that was
couldn't
weird. That was weird that someone tackled him off. Who actually was it? It was a named character that tackled Andor and pushed him off.
I didn't see that. No, I didn't. I don't think so. I think it was just some schmutz or putz who didn't have his glasses or whatever. Who knows? Yeah, the point is it prevented him, like you said, it prevents him from saving him. It's out of his hands at that point. Okay, let's move on to, oh, by the way, that last shot as they're pulling away, and you get that final view of all of the prisoners leaving in every one of the directions of that, Pentagon kind of.
What was that channeling? Like, that seemed like a familiar shot, but I could not. And maybe it's just a classic kind of shot of, ships. When something's going on in the middle, but you see ships escaping or whatever, and it's kind of scattering.
I don't know. It
just seemed very familiar.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. Okay, let's move over now to Coruscant. And, I mean, then they showed Lonnie Young walking. I thought, oh my goodness, he's a double agent kind of guy.
Fulcrum.
He's Fulcrum. I love the setup, like everything he had to do in order just to talk to him, right? And then going down to, my God, like what level is he at that he went down that far? We're almost in the innards of Coruscant, right? You could from the background.
He was jerking every which way, so he had no idea where he was going.
Oh yeah, for sure. But really cool. I mean, that aside, like just getting to see all that in live action, because we've seen it in Clone Wars, and we never saw it in Rebels. We saw it in Clone Wars quite a bit, like especially towards the later seasons, right? I'm thinking of like the Ventress episodes where she's kind of hiding down there in the shadows, kind of thing. So it was all similar. We've seen it before through animation, but seeing it live was really kind of cool to watch.
Before we get into it, was your faith restored that there were no handrails?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was like I had the same anxiety as I did in that one Mandalorian scene where him and that heavy, or the Vizsla, Paz Vizsla, were fighting on that walkway with no handrails or whatever, guardrails. Yeah, same kind of experience. Like any gust of wind would have just sent Luthen off. Like, how dare you risk your life for as the leader of a rebellion?
Hey, it's important to look good and have your cape flowing a little bit on the side as you have a little bit of a slight gait to your stand.
Yeah, it was a cool shot. We talked about that shot in the.
He was looking epic.
It was. We talked about that shot when we were talking about the footage that we had not seen yet, about midway through the season. And
we didn't know who the character was.
We couldn't. He wasn't on my radar. Not even close. But that's good. Again, more twists and turns that we weren't really expecting, which we got a lot of in this particular episode. Anyway, so yeah, the amount of hoops that they go through in order for him to talk was pretty cool. Luthen comes across very. It's almost like a mob kind of mentality, right? Once you're in, you can't get out, dude. It's a gang mentality. There's no way out. I'm not letting you out, right?
But his argument was there's no way out anyway, because you're screwed any which way you go. Basically, I think was Luthen's point. Now, what
I think that was Luthen's point. I don't. Yeah, Lonnie had a different idea using. Oh well, I've got a wife and they have a family business, and I can just go.
I can just quit,
retire. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I mean, I
out.
could just quit and just walk. And Luthen, and I wanted your kind of thoughts around this of whether or not Luthen really, really did feel like this guy was trapped and that he was just serving his own purposes. I know he said, "I'm not going to let you leave," but yeah, was he just convincing Lonnie, or was this really the truth? Like, there really isn't. You can't quit the Empire. The Empire quits you, basically, in whatever capacity that ends up being. But you don't leave the Empire, and because you don't leave the Empire, you also can't leave me, because you can't you're kind of tied to all of us now, and if you leave one or the other, everything falls apart.
Well, yeah, and so not to bring in like gangsters and mobs, but that's exactly what it is. Like you can't. The reason they say you can't leave because when you leave, you're now a liability. You know too many things, and I can't have that loose end out there, right? This is the whole point of, Clea wanting to go kill Andor or trying to track down Andor because he's out there and he's loose, and that's all going to lead back to her. It's going to lead back to Luthen. In that same regard, Luthen's like, even if you did, right? Even let's say you did, I couldn't in good conscience allow you just to walk away. I'm going to take you out at some point because I can't have you out there, right? Unless you're under my control. What was it? 6 years, 7 years that he's been doing this now is what they told us.
Yep. 6 years. Right.
Yeah. It's a long time, and it's a lot of information. He knows a lot about Luthen. Although I think Luthen does a really good job. Like even when he's in the elevator and they're talking about Aldani, and he's like, no, we turn that down. Right. He does a good way of like subverting that of that suspicion that maybe he was a part of it. So I think he still keeps him at arm's length and it still has some kind of, a safety net there in case things do get a little hairy, but I can't see him letting him go. I think he was trying to tell him, look, if you try to leave, you're dead or your daughter's dead. I mean, and that's what it was. He's like, oh, you become a father. And Lonnie could see right through that immediately. Like, why are you bringing up my daughter? What is this? Are you threatening me? Because that's really what it is. It's like, I know information about you, which as an aside, we need to know where Luthen gets his information, that he knows that much about Lonnie and that he knows, what he knows about Andor and on all of that. There's got to be.
But it doesn't seem that difficult, right? He knows who Lonnie is. Having anybody that Lonnie doesn't know be able to see who he is or know where he lives doesn't seem that difficult. I mean, Cyril's able to stalk, Dedra. So, I mean, do you think Cyril knows where Dedra lives? Probably.
Maybe. I think if I'm Lonnie though,
connected.
So here's where I would say that if I'm Lonnie and I know that people will go after me or want to get something on me, I would think he's probably going to great lengths to hide the fact that he has had a child or keep that secret in some way.
But you're an Imperial agent of sorts. I mean, you're
not a public figure though. Totally different.
You're not, but I'm guessing the Empire doesn't.
And you're
really
in the ISB. Like you're like.
Yeah, but do you think they really protect the identities of their agents?
Like I think he's doing what he can to protect his identity. I don't. Yeah.
I just don't think that he's good enough at that. But yeah, I mean, Luthen's got resources, and Luthen has connections, and Luthen has abilities and equipment that others don't expect him to have, or maybe don't give him enough credit to have. So I think I think he's resourceful enough to be able to do that and just gather this information. He knows who Lonnie is and where he works. To be able to tag him and follow him and learn things about him just seem pretty easy to me. They don't seem all that difficult. And then you just do taps on him.
He says a line in this twice. He says, "I think about you constantly." So I don't know.
I don't know what that means exactly because
I
could be taken a couple ways.
Yeah, there was almost the way he said it the first time, and even the second time, there was almost a sense of endearment about it. So I don't want to jump to conclusions that in some way this is his son, although that would be interesting, or if it's like his, stepson, but maybe he is a relative of some sort. Because Luthen, I mean, who is he going? Like, I understand he's got like the way these connections are created, these relationships are created is got to be done in the utmost secrecy. But having somebody as like a family member is one way, even if things turned out differently. Maybe he wasn't part of the ISB originally. Maybe he was just, he had some other job and he's worked his way up because of the information that Luthen was giving him. but it's gotten to the point now where he is, where he's at now, I guess. And now, if there is a relationship there, right, that would be one way. Like that's who I would trust to get in on the inside, somebody who was family and had connections, and maybe that relationship changed over time. But I don't know. Any chance that they're related in some way?
That seems to be a bit of a stretch for me. I think some of it was he thinks about him a lot because he's in a. Well, I don't know how much I believe him. First of all, except I wonder what he's doing. We haven't heard from him from other. Like, what is it we don't know? And it's that suspicion of what is it that like we kind of need this information. It'd be really great to have it. I think another aspect of that is, and I think it goes into what he was trying to tell Ani, was that the reason why he can't leave is because of his daughter, not in a threatening, not necessarily if you want to take the threat part of that kind of away and say that that wasn't his intent. It's the role of your father is to protect your child, to make the world a better place for your kid to be able to grow up and not have this tyranny lingering over them, or to learn that that's how you should live life because he is in the empire, and so that weight on him that, what am I teaching my daughter as an agent of the empire in one of the most powerful bureaus outside of the military? What is that? What example does that show her when I'm also trying to subvert that and I'm trying to further this cause that I've taken a vow to, but I can't tell her anything about, and that pain and that kind of tearing in that inner, turmoil that you can't be open and honest with the one that you care the most about. Right. And so I think some of that with Luthen is because those are the things that he's already forsaken. And I don't know that he wants, and we hear this in the speech, and which was I think the best speech I think I've ever heard in Star Wars, actually. I think it was better than Kino Loy's. But to not be able to identify that the humanity that Luthen no longer has still exists in Lonnie. And he feels maybe bad about that in some ways, that he's asking Lonnie to forgo some of that stuff, but maybe he gives him enough of a leash to, don't lose all of that. Don't give up all the things I've had to give up. But he thinks about it a lot because that's maybe the person he used to be, or the person those were the things he used to do. And that was his role early on, that he thought he could play both sides and have that dual life and still have something to live for, rather than feeling, in his words, basically, damned to suffer in all of your ill choices, and all of the sacrifices you've had to make, you are stuck with all of the effects of it, knowing that you'll never even get a thank you.
So you're saying more, if I could read,
if you can make sense of my rambling. Yeah, got it.
No. Well, I was thinking like, so almost as like use me as a cautionary tale, like don't turn into me kind of thing.
I don't know about don't turn into me, but I'm thinking about you because I understand the position that you're in, and I don't want that for you, but sorry, I kind of need you to be in that position.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. By the way, your better half agreed with me.
Yeah, well,
they were related.
It's okay that you guys are both wrong. But I mean, it's also well, you're doing this. He's doing this because, keep your daughter in mind. This is why you're doing it. And that's why he keeps bringing his daughter up. Not necessarily, while it sounded threatening, I think it's also just from an angle of, you're doing this for her. Don't lose sight of that. She needs her father, but that means we need to win, right? She needs her father to do the right thing here.
This is a bit of a
he's
role
playing
reversal.
dirty. Yeah, he's playing dirty here.
Because usually I'm the loving, empathetic guy, and you're the one that's like, nope, it's this way because this person's a jerk. But
yeah, well, and then we have Gene in the chat saying, we're gonna have Mara Jade come and assassinate Luthen.
Any way to get her back into the story.
Hey, she has a new action figure coming out soon, so you never know.
So
you wanted to read too much into action figures, so
yeah. Look at
Lauren's calling you out. Albert has changed.
I've changed. It's Andor. It's doing it to me. It's this hat. I think ever since I've had this hat,
that's what I was about to say. It's the Imperial hat.
The Imperial hat I'm wearing. It's just made me a different person. I'm so much more jaded now.
Hey, but if it makes you feel any better, apparently, if you were part of whatever rebellion Luthen and Saw are part of,
Mm-hmm.
you were kind of screwed to go that in some way. You were going to lose your humanity one way or the other. So
Yeah, that's right. There's no one wins in this
Yeah.
game, which is appropriate for Andor.
Yeah.
The Lonnie, I think Luthen sees it exactly the way Lonnie's presenting it, which is, hey, I've got all this information, and peace out. I'm giving you everything I got. This is my final goodbye kind of thing, which doesn't really land very well with Luthen. But he's so quick to just say, well, you know what? It's only 50 men, right? Who cares? Losing 50 guys is not worth your place within the ISB and the information that we're getting and all that, right? You're not seeing the bigger picture here.
How low of a blow was it? I'm really doing it for you. I'm really protecting you. You're that important to me that I'm willing to sacrifice. I mean, God.
He's taking the wind out of these arguments, right?
How awful of a feeling must that be to Lonnie, though? Like, ugh, really? You're sacrificing 50 people for me. Oh, and for my daughter, so she doesn't lose her father. Like, ouch. I mean, you're cutting me deep, Smalls.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pulling, like I said, all the wind out of the sail.
Yeah.
With some of the comments that he's saying. So we learned, we talked about him. He tells him that he took a vow. Again, this is now the second time he's mentioned to him that there's a vow that's been taken. Again, I'm starting to wonder if there really is some kind of like secret society that was established to kind of get all this going, and Luthen and Mon Mothma and some other people are kind of all at the core of that core group that started all of this.
Sure sounds like it.
Yeah, but he says, you're trapped, Lonnie. There's not pleasure in saying it, but you're going nowhere. This is where he repeats, I'm thinking about you constantly. And this is where we get into the, he's like, what about my sacrifice? And what have you sacrificed? And then we get into the speech, which again, I won't read the whole thing. It's a little bit shorter.
If you did, I'd be like sitting here. Yes, this is great. This is wonderful.
Well, the joke I made today, again on Twitter, was that when you listen to the speech, think about yourself as a fan of Star Wars today. Not
you had to go there.
Like, what do we give up? Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance of inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. All the people that have left the fandom.
The ghosts are probably the most realistic one. We call it legends as well. Yeah.
I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. Coming on air and doing this show every week, I'm damned for doing it. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, all the fights I get on Twitter, they set me down a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use some of the tools of my enemy to defeat them, which is Twitter. I burn my decency for someone else's future, everybody that's coming forward in Star Wars fandom. I burn my life to make a sacrifice that I know I'll never see, and the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice for this fandom? Everything. Good night, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week. Anyways, how are you doing?
I can't talk. I'm laughing so hard. I'm crying.
We need all the heroes we can get, guys.
Oh God, I don't know how to do. I don't know how to follow that up.
Yeah. Well, it's a great speech, and you can apply it to a lot of different things, not just that.
You really can. You really can.
So what were your favorite moments from that speech?
It was this moment right now, actually.
Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, it was pretty darn good. And like I would imagine that when the Emmys come around and they're showing the clip, for why he was nominated, this is some part of this is going to be in there, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
Probably the very end, but
this could be the scene. Just everything about it is absolutely
perfect. And I've seen it a few times. I've seen this episode 5 times. It's more I've seen, and it only came out yesterday, right? I mean, I've seen it that many times. Part of it has been bits and pieces here and there, but I think in totality, it's probably been about 5 times. But what I don't remember, shame on me, is I can't remember if it's one long cut. I want to say they cut to Lonnie at one point and they kind of come back.
Yeah, and
But
I think they frame in and out a little bit with
they frame
Luthen.
in and out.
Each time
Okay.
they cut, yeah.
Okay. Either way, it was still powerful. But I was just thinking, wow, you know what? I never really paid attention to whether or not they stayed with him the entire time. Because if so, my God, that's got to be, that's amazing. If so, I mean, it still is. Don't get me wrong, but um, yeah, really good stuff.
But
But I
I
mean,
like
it
that.
speaks to,
I like that this is Luthen. I mean, this is you. We were wondering what all he's given up. Like, what's Luthen's backstory?
mm-hmm.
I mean, this is it in a very, in kind of a high level way.
Yeah. Yep.
But you could just see him gain. It was like Kino Loy, right? He just gains momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Every word that he says, that he's just channeling his purest thoughts, and you could probably tell Luthen's not had this conversation for a while, or maybe at all, to where he has actually laid it all out there of everything that he's given up, and everything that it means to him, and everything that he feels he's lost as a result of this, and who he doesn't even know who he is half the time.
Yeah.
He's almost on autopilot because he knows what he needs to be and who he needs to be. And it doesn't matter if that's who he is or not. That's who he is. That's just who he is now, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it was a really, it's interesting to hear people talk about themselves in a very raw way, and to finally almost have that admission of who they are. And it's almost like it's the first time they've heard it out loud, or that they've really allowed themselves to acknowledge it and just accept who they really are.
That is an astute observation. I hadn't considered that, but I think you're 100% right. I think he's thought about these things, right? This has all been building up, but no one's ever probably asked him. And boy, did Lonnie pick the wrong time to ask, because not only does he get this amazing speech delivered to him, but then Luthen just like pushes a button, closes the door, and like sends him on his way. Like, get out of here. Like, and then he's just got to think about this on the ride back up, right?
Star Wars Mike dropped him with a click of a button.
Yeah, with the click of a button. Get out of here, kid. But yeah, no, you're right. Like and this is indicative. Like, this same thing is, you think of Leia, right, and all the sacrifices that she makes, and Bail Organa, and anybody that's really part of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this applies to them in a lot of different ways. Even up until we get to like Rebels and some of those characters as well. Like, what all have they been given, and what have they sacrificed for this rebellion?
And to take it back to Mon Mothma, about where you see where she is at in that journey compared to Luthen, and while they may have started off at the same point, you can see just that the different trajectory and the different paths. And we knew that already.
Yeah.
But now we just see the severity of it. And we see that lack of that willingness to let go of your conscience and to sacrifice that part of you. It's another loss that he's had, right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't name it maybe specifically, but his ability to make the decisions that's right for him, or right for the rebellion further down. Everything is right in front of him. He's only thinking of what is it going to take to win, and not consider the consequences later on, as he says, right?
Yep.
I have to make decisions now. My ego gets in the way of that, but that's what it is. And and I think in his belief system, this is what we need. Someone else will clean up the pieces, because I'm not going to live long enough to see it, but that's
Right.
the role I play.
Yep.
And I mean, this is like Saw Gerrera. I mean, I would love to hear a similar speech from Saw Gerrera, and to hear out of his mouth how that compares with what we just heard from Luthen. And I have a feeling that it would be I think there would be a lot of similarity between them.
And I wonder how much of this is maybe not directly, but indirect foreshadowing of what Andor will become. Because by the time we get to Rogue One, you could argue this is all him, right? The cold-bloodedness that he has, I mean, we won't go through the whole speech again, but everything here is really, I can see Andor being of this cut from the same kind of cloth, and uttering some of these exact words, or some variation thereof, because of what he's had to sacrifice over the years to get where he's at. And again, he's not unique. I think everybody that's part of the rebellion goes through this, and probably feels like this at some point, because of the evil empire, just how big they are, and how big their overreach is, and how small they are when they think about what they're doing, and the efforts that they have compared to where the empire is at this point. So,
And it makes you think about characters like Draven, Right. And even Clea, like, so,
Yeah.
I mean, with Clea, and with Luthen, what is her backstory? Like, what is her part in this? How aligned is she with what Luthen just laid out for us?
Yeah.
And
No.
what's her story
Exactly.
behind it? Because she seems to be even more severe than Luthen in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really hope we get some of her backstory as well. So her character's not quite as, I'm going to use the word shallow. I don't mean that in any other way of, we just don't know a whole lot about her. And we've just got a lot of surface for her right now.
Yeah.
And I would really like to see all that.
Non-dimensional for now.
Yeah, it's very, yeah. Limited
Undimensional?
dimensions that we know of her. Yeah, something like that. She's kind of two-dimensional, I guess is what you might say right now. But anyway, we just don't know a whole lot about her story, right? And we want to. I think it would help understand where that is. I don't think they have to, but I think it would be nice to have.
Yep. Yeah, no, great stuff. This is a speech everybody's been talking about, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it. And this I have a feeling we're going to come back to this. I mean, this is such a cool blueprint of, that we can use later when we're talking about other characters, and just having somebody speak in this way, in these terms of what it means to be part of the rebellion is, we've never really had it in Star Wars, right? We just assume that this is who they are. We see it from their actions and some of the things they say, but never as raw as what we got from this speech. So,
I mean, it's really, and we knew this going in, and we knew this in Rogue One. The rebellion's not so clean and squeaky.
nope.
Or squeaky clean.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's a reality that we're coming to terms with, and we have to face that. And that's why it's so important for a character like Mon Mothma to stay as clean as possible, to say that is the rebellion, is Mon Mothma's rebellion. That is the rebellion. It's not Luthen. It's not Saw Gerrera. And while we could view them as tools, I think it's important for Mon Mothma not to view them as tools as she becomes more of an assertive leader in the rebellion.
That's fair. Absolutely. By the way, we forgot to mention this, but if anybody's wondering, or if you're keeping up, this was directed by Toby Haynes, written by Beau Willimon. This is not his first one. Man, Beau Willimon, whatever you're writing, I'm following you at this point.
I mean, again, you have more nominees left and right throughout this entire series at every level in this production. Yeah.
Okay, and then the final scene, the final scene is back on Arcana 5, and we get that shot of Cassian and Melshi running off into the dark, and there's you can see the searchlights in the background, so it looks like the Empire is showed up and trying to find out what's going on, or trying to find the people that have, all the inmates that have left, but I assume this is where we're going to pick up, and very quickly, though. I don't know that we're going to dwell on it too long, because they've got to get back to Ferrix as well as everybody else at some point, so.
Yeah, and Rob, great show as always. Thank you for your sacrifice to be here. I think he's talking to you. We will win the fight. Hey, Rob, there's only one way out, brother. Only one way out.
One way out. Yeah.
And that's to end the show. This is what Mike has been telling us all along. There's only one way out. I could just hear Mike saying this over and over. One way out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I guess the final question that I have, I think we've answered all the other ones that I had in the final thoughts. But what do you, I guess, we probably talked about it in a roundabout way, but for Andor, now that he's gone through this experience, we were kind of speculating what prison life was going to be like and just how much it would change him. I think it's done quite a bit. Even if it only was 34 days, I think it opened his eyes to, the Empire's bad, but they really are evil. And that's a big change, a big difference. But I still feel like it doesn't hit home enough. I know he's been through prison. I'm not undermining that in any way, but it just feels like there's got to be something more that's going to push him really over the edge, push him into this Luthen mentality, or at least get him on that path. And it's probably one kind of catalyst effort, but then you take that along with the prison time, maybe the manifesto that hasn't really turned into anything, the sacrifices on Ferrix, and whatever else is going to come here soon. I think all of this is going to lead us right into season 2, where he becomes this budding rebel, under Luthen's tutelage, or maybe it's Mon Mothma. I don't know just yet, but we can speculate on that too. But I think we've done enough of that. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I think he's in that corner that he's rounding, and I'm with you. I think there's still more that Andor has to experience before he's all the way there. but I think you're right. I think he's not only seen how evil they are once you're captured in the system, but how easy it is to get you into the system and how everyone is at risk. The way that he was captured in the first place was just so dumb, in his opinion, right? This makes no sense. I'm just a tourist. I was just going to the store and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was it, right? I think what the final straw is going to be, if I were to speculate, we have it seems pretty certain that Marva is going to die. I think she's going to be killed. And I think she's going to get in the crossfire we know that she's doing activities, right? We know that she's now a rebel. She is self-declaimed, proclaimed herself a rebel, and she's doing stuff on the sly. At least she was at one point, doing things at night, doing what she can because now she has a cause she can believe in and there's hope. She's going to get caught and something is going to happen and they're going to make an example of her. And I'm curious if it happens with Andor not there to where the guilt gets to him, or if it happens in front of him when he gets there. Mm-hmm. And it really sets him off that edge. And that's where he really goes hook, line, and sinker. And again, I think that takes him down more of this. I won't call it an extreme path, but there's more Luthen / Saw way of doing things where we have to fight fire with fire, eye for an eye. There's no
one way out.
Yeah, there's only one way out, basically, right? Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the cry for a long time, I think, because it just makes sense. When you've lost all hope and your back's against the wall, there's only one way out, and it's forward. And that's what Luthen has been saying in his speech as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be that corner. I think he still has that. He still has to have something else, and I think it's going to be dear old mom.
Yeah, I mean, they could be setting us up for everybody's expecting that, and they pull something on us. That would be kind of cool. I wouldn't put it past the writers at this point to do something like that. But the more obvious one for me is that, Marva dies. I think it's powerful both ways. Either she just, him learning about it and not being there and having some time pass and feeling helpless, like he couldn't do anything about it. That's powerful in itself. But if he is privy to it and has witnessed it and still feels unempowered to do anything about it, and especially if it's, heartless or to set an example, that's going to hit hard really quick for him. So I hate to say she's the obvious choice, but it could be somebody like Bix too. I mean, maybe that's enough for him. But I think Marva, they've kind of, the writing's on the wall, right? That
the health problems and
losing her mind.
Yeah,
not on her
again,
meds.
Her getting killed is probably a bit of a stretch. I mean, it's probably, but again, she has to die doing something that Andor can relate to and really shake him to his core, and not just be about losing his mother, but losing, or mother figure, I guess technically, but it is also more than that. Is that she died doing something that she felt strongly about and was making a difference, but it ended up not making a difference. But he was willing enough. He's willing to pick up that fight and do something about it, even though the odds are stacked against him, because he's of what he's seen. It all comes together. It's the sum of all of these experiences that's going to do it. So Nemik's perspectives, Nemik's manifestos, all of the things that he's witnessed and experienced directly and indirectly, all of those make up the person. It's not just one event that switches you over. And I think that's what makes the series so great, is that it's taking the time to really set all of these different things up. All of these things make Andor. It's not just, like a Luke Skywalker thing. Well, my aunt and uncle were killed, so now I have no strings attached. I can go and fight the Empire.
He never mourned them. Get out of here.
He did too. He looked at them and looked down on the ground and looked up and let the wind blow through his hair.
Yeah, and he's like, "There's nothing left for me here."
I mean, there literally wasn't. They were bones and charred. So I mean, quite literally, there was
were
nothing
dust in the
left.
wind at that point.
Right.
Sorry.
But I mean,
It's the
but I
hat.
mean, it's
It's the hat.
while I get that's kind of the hero. I mean, the condensed hero's journey of sorts. I like that we're taking the long approach here, and these are the things that make this character, and this is what make the character so interesting and so deep and so complex, right?
Yep.
And what makes all of the other characters all the more interesting because of how they play against each other and how they play one-on-one with one another.
Hey, so
Are you just now liking Twitter? I just got a notification. You're just now liking our.
I just saw it. Yeah, I'm always kind of late to that stuff. Hey, I do have one
Oh,
other
are you
question.
even listening? You even listening?
Yeah, I've been listening to you. I can like and listen to what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
I do have one other question that just came up though right now,
Okay.
and I think it's important.
Was it on Twitter?
It's not in the script, so I apologize in advance. But we saw the response from the Empire after the events at Aldhani. Arguably, this is like another level, maybe, right? I mean, this
Oh yeah.
is, I mean, this is the worst. Their worst fears coming true. Um, do you think they're gonna? And this is exactly what Luthen. Whether he didn't orchestrate this, but this is what Luthen's been talking about. Where we need them to respond in a big way because they more. Again, not to quote Leia, but the more they tighten their grip, the more systems slip through their fingers, kind of thing. But do you feel like we're going to get a response from the Empire as a result of this that we'll see in these next two episodes? And is that really what kind of is the combustible piece that starts the skirmish on Ferrix? We saw something's going on there, right? There's a revolt, and we talked about maybe that's tied to Marva. Something's done there. The people that get behind her and they rally, or is it just something that the Empire does in response to the events here on Narkina 5?
It's a really interesting question because you could see why the Empire would not want anyone to find out about this.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
true
is
too.
something that
Yep.
they want to keep completely under wraps, that their maximum security prisons, and that's probably not the case of what these are, but these prisons they're fallible in some way, in that the Empire is not as strong. Again, it's about strength, right? And about asserting that strength. And if there's any kind of weakness to that, I don't know that a prison break sends the right message, where they can kind of play the victim card with Aldhani, right?
Sure.
This militant group came and attacked us and stole. It was a robbery, and they're thugs, and we have got to, we're ironing all of this out, so we're increasing security. This is really for your best interest because this is happening everywhere across. Or we don't want this to happen everywhere. That we can't have this be a problem. But when it happens inside of your prison system, that's a whole something else. Where you have 5,000 prisoners riot and break out and scatter.
Mhm.
Now, there's ways that they can approach all of that too. Mass prison break, and then they can swing it and they can spin this because they're the Empire. They're really good at propaganda. But I'm really, I don't know is kind of the short answer of it, because I could see where they wouldn't want anybody to find out about this, but it's going to get out in the open. But if you're the Empire, do you want to even acknowledge it? And my guess is probably not. You want to keep this under wraps as much as possible. But everywhere else that they have prisons, they're probably about to just kind of feel the weight of the Empire in a whole new way.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that one, though? I'm really
Yeah, no,
curious
I
to hear
hadn't considered. Well, again, this was off the cuff, but you make a good counterpoint that why I can see them not like suppressing the intelligence, ensuring this doesn't get out. If for whatever reason people hear about it, then they make up some story that's not real, right? They kind of downplay it in a lot of ways. But
Well, and look at Lauren's. I'll put Lauren's comment here on the board. And this is kind of speaking to what you're saying. And they probably don't want the details of that prison getting out. Shock floors, slave labor, all of the conditions and everything. And I think that's kind of speaking to what you're getting to as well.
yeah, like what if Mothma found out about this, right? Or some other folks in the Senate found out that this is what was happening in the prison systems. Like I'm sure this has not been sanctioned or authorized by anyone other than the Empire. Not that they need any kind of approval, but
Right.
I mean, this is slave labor. This is slavery, enslavement all over again.
And it's torture. Yeah.
It's torture, yeah, for sure, right? I mean, all the other stuff that goes with that prison.
You are shocked when you arrive. You are shown what a shock feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and you are witnessing it every single day. I mean, it's torture and it's mental abuse and everything else. I mean, you don't want the galaxy seeing that.
Nope.
Yeah, good point,
Well,
Lauren. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. All right, well,
so real quick though, where does this
Yeah.
rank? If you were to rank episodes, is this at the top or is it just?
well, it's at the
still kind
top.
of near-
I mean, yeah, it's at the top for me because I said it out of the beginning that it was the best damn Star Wars television I've ever seen. So,
Oh, that's right. You did lead with that, so that was an
but
easy
yeah,
one.
so it tops everything so far up until now. But I mean, even still, I mean, it's this episode, this arc is just phenomenal. And I know we talked about the people that have stuck with the show are just kind of getting people back on and telling folks that, hey, if you dropped out, you need to come back, because this is very different, I think, and not necessarily. Again, I think all of the episodes have been phenomenal, and it's just really what you want out of television, what you want out of Star Wars television. And for me, this has been exactly what I've wanted and hoped this would be when I heard about it, especially since it was on the tails of Rogue One with Tony Gilroy at the helm and Diego Luna coming back. I'm thinking this is exactly what I was hoping, and this is exactly what we got. So for my expectations, I've been well served many times over. That said, I know some folks have, initially were kind of turned off by the fact that it was very different. It wasn't The Mandalorian. It wasn't the Book of Boba Fett. And I think for those folks, I think I would encourage people to come back, because even though this may not still be Mando and Boba, there's some really great stuff that's going on here, especially when we talk about the Empire and how they work and the ISB. I mean, it's just stuff that we've always thought about, maybe read about here or there very lightly, but seeing it firsthand and witnessing it through the eyes of these characters, I mean, it's just really great stuff.
I keep telling people, I'm like, because usually the people who are telling me I really liked Rogue One. I'm like, if you liked Rogue One, the way that Rogue One was set up was very, like, this is just taking that and expanding that and blowing it up all around you and getting more of that detail, but that style too. And that deliberate filmmaking process, or that deliberate storytelling process, and taking time and doing things in a very specific way, and a very deliberate way, and taking that time. It's just taking that and expanding it and blowing it into a whole nother level for you. And it's worth it. And like you said, every person that has gone back and revisited, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that TV could be this good. And I think the only thing that rivals this episode as far as just a powerful and things like that was like Ahsoka leaving the Order in Clone Wars. That's always been kind of at the top of my list of on-screen emotional moments.
Yeah,
in
it's
Star
up there.
Wars. I mean, we talked about kind of the total profile, right? Music, acting, everything else, all of the things that go into it. And this is right up there. And I'm with you. This is likely my top moment in Star Wars, just period. And I know when we come back and revisit our Patreon episode with some of our listeners and Patreon members, and we look at the second half of the season for favorite moments, it would shock me if two of the three moments were not from this one episode, to be honest with you. Not knowing what we've got left in the last two episodes, of course, but at this point, it's really difficult to know what could beat it, but I'm here for it, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for sure. It's going to be, how do you top this? And to think that we are going to get that is pretty darn exciting at this point. All right. Well, good stuff, man. Great show, if I do say so myself.
You were in top form tonight. I will say that. Thank you for the hardest laugh I've had in quite a while.
Yeah. I don't have many moments, but I do have some.
I don't think that was the quote, but you were close.
That's not the quote, but you know what I was talking about. Yeah. Anyways, what do you got? You got shout outs?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We had a really lively chat tonight. So thank you everyone for stopping by. Steph, Jonathan, Music Train, Lauren, Sky, Dale, Kathy, Jorge, Rob, Luis Berry, Hard Counter, Eugene, Emotional Evolution. If I missed someone, my sincerest apologies, but we enjoyed all of the comments out there. Thank you for sticking with us through some of the technical difficulties as well. We certainly appreciate that, and you guys are amazing. And once again, a huge thank you to our Patreon members as well.
I'm right here. I can hear you. I'm kidding.
Oh, I'm sorry. You still here? Oh, damn.
Wow, that's amazing. Sorry, let's go to Rondo. Okay, let's see. We'll be back in. So we'll have to do a Patreon this weekend. I've got some things coming up here, so we'll talk about that, Jonesy, off the air.
Oh, wow. You're not going to just commit us to it right away, like usual?
Like usual. No, I'm going to let you have a say this time. No, I'm kidding.
No, you're not going to have a say. It's fine.
We'll see.
We do. It is more of a partnership than we get lead on sometimes.
It is a partnership. It is. But yeah, we'll be back in a few days to do that. The Patreon episode, and at some point we are going to get to Tales of the Jedi. And we've got some High Republic stuff that's finally, like, we've been waiting for. By the way, I got my book in finally.
Oh yeah,
the Convergence book. You get it before I do now. I don't know what it is. Like,
I know
how the tables have turned.
I know. Yeah, it used to be. I was like a week behind you. It seemed like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now you're like 4 or 5 days before me. So
yeah,
it's fine. It's okay. I don't mind. But yeah, we'll get to the High Republic stuff, phase 2, because that's it feels like that's just an entirely different plane of existence when it comes to Star Wars, which is cool. Because it probably should feel that way, but it feels so different.
It is a hard shift, though. Like when I started listening to the audiobook as I was kind of driving back and forth to work, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so different. Like, and it feels like you got to start over too, because you're learning new characters and who they are.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep up with the comic book a little bit better too, which is
the second issue just came out.
Yeah, it's taking a little bit of time to get kind of rolling and stuff, but
Yep.
it's it's
a
a
different
huge shift, man.
It does feel like we're starting over, which makes sense because it's a whole new phase, and we're 150 years even further back now. So
Yeah, and one other thing, so we know that the last episode of Andor is right before U.S. Thanksgiving, so stay tuned for the specifics on when we'll be live for that. I think we're going to try to do that on that Wednesday night here in a couple weeks rather than Thanksgiving Day, but stay tuned and we'll get that published out there as quickly as we can once we get that firmed up. But so just as a kind of a little further down the road, keep in mind.
Yep. And before we go, if I wasn't on my game tonight, I definitely was with the credits because I have updated the credits. It includes all of the new people that have joined the Patreon, upgraded, and all of that. So
I'm impressed. Well done, sir.
Yep. So with that, we'll see you guys here in just a few days.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.